time.
Here we go, another Square Dance Callers Talking tonight. I have a caller from Pennsylvania. He is going to tell us a lot. He's got a big story to tell us. I believe it's Pennsylvania. I know he's up there where Mr. Rogers is from and the Pittsburgh Pirates are. Tonight I'm talking to Corben Geis. How are you, sir?
All is good. All is good, buddy.
It is a pleasure to meet you. We've never had the opportunity to talk or meet before. I've seen a lot of your work, whether it be on YouTube or some of your cartoon stuff, some of your art that you've done. I've watched a lot of stuff on YouTube, but we've never had the chance to actually meet in person at any conventions or anything. Maybe that'll happen one day. But so let's talk about you. You've watched some of my podcasts. So how have you been?
How have I been? Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, which one? Or all of the above?
Yeah, all of the above.
I'm kind of like great about here right now, but I'm okay.
All right. Well,
all right.
And we're going to talk about some of your, I know you've done quite a few recordings. You've got record labels and all that. Now we want to talk about that. But let's start at the very beginning, man. When did you start square dancing?
Why or when?
When?
When it was, I was in fifth grade. So it would have been like 82, 83, about 40 years ago. Oh my God. About 40 years ago. Yeah.
And why? Okay. So why in fifth grade?
We were put up to it.
Okay.
It was for a gym class, and it was at St. John's Catholic School in a little town called Lakemont, which is a part of Altoona. Altoona is just a little tiny thing, and then Lakemont's even a tinier thing of that. And I'll never forget it, Charlie, because I thought I was losing my mind. I was like 10, and I absolutely loved it. None of the other guys, we all played basketball together. None of the other hoodlums that I hung out with liked it at all. And I'm thinking, what the heck's the matter with me? And then I'm thinking, what's the matter with you guys? We're dancing with all the girls in the class. There were some girls that I knew I'd never, ever get to first base with. And here I am dancing with them. And I loved it. And it was great, but it was awful at the same time, because you've heard the stories, I'm sure. And one of the things I do in my calling adventures and misadventures is go into the schools to teach. But back then we were skipping records, those old 78s and 33 and a thirds, and there it just didn't seem like there was any type of pattern. It just seemed like it was a 52 pickup if you play cards. It seemed like the whole thing was this big Chinese fire drill. And but I loved it because I got to dance with the girls, and my grandparents were dancers. They were snowbirders too. They went down to Venice, Florida, and they said, you need to do this with a real live caller. And I said, okay. It just so happens their club was right across the street from that school where I was learning. And it was a fire hall. And I went in like the first night of class and absolutely just fell in love with it. And I won the 50-50 the first night, and I haven't won since. But that was back when 10 squares was a bad night.
Sure. Yeah.
So I mean, so that's how I really got into it, was at school. And then I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be doing this because none of the other people like it, but I still like it. But my grandma and my grandpa were like, yes, you got to do this. You really like this. And I just picked up a microphone about a year after that. Next thing you know, I'm doing that too.
Right. So you started calling.
That was a big. It's not a business. It's a racket, but it's a lot of fun. It's a fun racket.
So you start calling about a year later, so 6th, 7th grade roughly. Who were some of your influences back there? Well,
back then, we only had like a club or two around. Like Penn State isn't too far from us, so they would bring the big callers in. Well, I say big, not in stature, because Marshall Flippo was really.
Oh no, yeah,
big, but big. So Flip would come in and Bauer and Shoemake, and you'd see all those guys, and you'd be like, "Whoa, man!" But the two guys in my area was Bruce Williamson, who's in his 90s now and is still calling in the Alabama area. And he taught Tom Miller how to call. And, you know, once you see Tom Miller in action, you're like, oh my gosh, I really want to do what he's doing. And he just makes it look so much fun. And so those two guys were kind of my biggest influences in my area. But, you know, to see all the big guys and girls calling was just a sight.
Fantastic. Man, that, you know, I get to talk to so many people doing this podcast and going to conventions, and some of the mentors that everybody has had. It's just, I met Marshall Filippo probably a year before he passed at one of the conventions. Never got to actually hear him call or dance to him or anything like that. But I heard the legend and would have liked to have done that. Some of the Tom Miller I've known for years just because I'm down in this area and we've run across each other a lot. Very nice, super nice guy. Couldn't ask for a nicer guy. So, man, you're fortunate to have those guys and the Gary Shoemakes and all that. I danced to them here and there just in passing. I started dancing when my son's 32, so 29 years ago. And
wow.
But it was all around here in the Georgia area, so I would get lucky if somebody came through because we didn't have a whole lot from down in this area. All right. So,
nice.
Man, you start calling and you decide you want to take this up for a while. When did you start doing your own dances and everything?
Oh, well, the calling thing it wasn't like some of those guys get the calling bug and go right to it. Mine kind of was because I was getting into junior high and senior high, and there were a lot more kids dancing back then than there were now. But I was really active in school too. So as much as I love square dancing, it seemed like I was dancing 8 days a week, but I know I wasn't. Then college came around, and it seemed like I was never able to do it full throttle because then after college I was working in the art field, and then I worked for baseball, and my I guess real job was working in therapeutic recreational activities for about 30 years. But what happened was it was just like most people. You would you'd do a tip or two here and there, and I never took my records or my microphone into the dances. Was taught very early to have it in your car. You don't go walking in like you're gonna expected to call. If the caller comes to ask you, then that's the thing, but be prepared. So that was a really good and humble type of ego check early. And but you know what, that's a really good question, because it probably wasn't until after college that I actually started calling. So we're going up to about 94 now. That I think that was the same year I joined CALLERLAB, because that was the first time I believe CALLERLAB convention was in Pittsburgh. Yeah, so that's about when I started calling. I was calling in Pittsburgh and in State College area and in the Altoona area. Now the thing was, Charlie, back then, and you probably know, line dancing was in its heyday.
Sure, in the 90s.
With Aaron Tippin and Garth and Billy Ray. And people that I knew, my age, could have cared less about square dancing, but loved line dancing. And I started a group, funny as it sounds, at that same hall where I was learning to dance years and years ago. I started a group, and I wanted it to be square dancing and line dancing. And I tried to get the two together, but it was like oil and water. It didn't work. Now, some times over the years it did, but it was so funny because I wanted to call square dances, but I said I'm gonna lure them in,
right,
with line dancing. And so I put it out there that here's line dancing back 30 years ago. We're going roughly here. Was always at a bar or tavern or saloon, and there was still smoking, and there was still booze. So I say, hey, you know, no booze free. I almost said free booze. That would have got a lot of people in.
You'd have pulled a lot in.
I gotta write that one down. Free booze. No smoking, no drinking. You know, bring your water. I'm not kidding. I had close to 50 people. I'm pretty sure it was about 4 people that came in for the line dance, and I knew about 10 or 12 line dances. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I really need to learn more line dances to keep these people. But I'm like, and then after we line dance for an hour and a half, stick around for square dancing. And of course, it's the old thing where the square dancers came for the line dancing and the square dancing, but the line dancers just stayed for line dancing, and they were out of there when the square dancing came. I even tried to slip in an intro with big circle dances and stuff like that. And they just, I mean, I tried all different angles of trying to keep them. And it was so funny because at the time, I think we were only charging for like square dancing, like $3 a person. And the line dance people came to me and said, $3 for a line dance? Oh my gosh, we paid 10. This is 30 years ago too. I'm like, man, I got to find a color school that talks about the finance part of this. And so that's when I really started calling. I wasn't a cure for round dancing, but I pretty much taught myself how to build up from those 10 or 12 line dances to about 40 or 50 line dances. It still had my heart set on square dancing. And then the line dancers would leave, and I'd had like your typical 2 squares of square dancing. But that's pretty much how I ended up doing it. Then I went into the nursing centers because my grandpa who square dance got Parkinson's. So I took square dancing into the nursing facility. Then I started doing wheelchair square dancing. Man, that just boomed, because the next thing you know, I was calling sometimes 3 times a day at these nursing centers with wheelchair dances. And it was actually a business there for a while, for a good 2 or 3 years, along with teaching art. But that's another story.
So you start, is the wheelchair how it got into the handicapable stuff you were telling me about earlier? Tell me about that.
Yeah, it really was, because I took it into the home. First of all, I'm an art major, Pittsburgh art major, with the artist in Pittsburgh. Started calling over there, going back in altitude, about 100 miles away Pittsburgh is. You make it in a couple hours. Sometimes the way I drive, like an hour. I shouldn't be telling this to a cop, but I took the square dance, and so my grandma could be with my grandpa, and she maneuvered him in the chairs. And I know there's a lot of people who want me to get them into handicapable dancing. They think I started wheelchair dancing. They've been wheelchair square dancing as long as they've been wheelchair basketball playing. They've been doing it for years. I just started adding my own touch to it. And the weird thing about that whole deal is, and when I said I was doing them 3 times a day, it was crazy, because word got out, hey, there's this guy who's calling square dances in wheelchairs. What? And I was calling, I remember extremely well, I was calling at 10 o'clock at one place. I'd go and do another facility, be it an assisted living community, be it a retirement home, at 2 o'clock, and then I do an evening one at 7. At 7 o'clock were more assisted livings where they didn't put the folks to bed right after supper. There's some nursing homes that said, okay, nope, you're not watching Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, it's time for bed. So I ended up going into therapeutic recreational activities, which was great, because my whole career I got to kind of intertwine the art, the music, and the dance, and the sports, and all that with activities. But it was because of square dancing that I got into the activity director's field. And then after calling many years for wheelchair dances, I started getting some Special Olympics kids into it. And up at Penn State. Now, first of all, I'll tell you, I live close to Penn State, but I'm a West Virginia fan.
West Virginia Mountaineers. All right.
I'm telling you. So I don't like Penn State. And but Joe Paterno and his wife Sue were huge advocates to Special Olympics, and they would have the Special Olympics up at Penn State, which is only about 40 minutes from here. I could do it about 22, but they would have these big Special Olympics, and what they did is it was like people would rotate almost like Stations of the Cross. They'd be over here doing an event. They come over here for an event, almost like stir in the bucket to speak our language. And then they'd come to me, and I'd be the square dancing event. And I just saw how much fun these folks were having. And I'm like, wait a minute, I called to the physically challenged. I can call to the mentally challenged too. These folks are loving this. And then, to my ignorance, I found out this would have been about 98, so about 25 years ago now. I'm in 97, 98. And then I found out they've been having Handicapable square dance conventions since like 1988.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, I mean, yeah, and they have them every 2 years still on an even number of years. So they're off this year and they'll be back next year. And Tom Miller, again, his name's probably going to come up a lot. Out of all of the stuff that Tom did, because he called, nationally, internationally, and then he'd be calling locally. We had an A2 club. And before the A2 club dance, he had a group of Special Olympics dancers all through the 80s.
No kidding. I've never heard of that. That's outstanding.
And then back to the line dancing segment here. They started calling me in to do hangout nights at these ARCs, ARC. And they had hangout nights, and they wanted me to come in and do line dances. This is the 90s. I started doing line dancing. You would take the achy breaky and you'd water it down to simplify it for the folks there, because the different audience participation there had different cognitive levels of learning. Sure. So we'd have a blast. And then I would say, you know what? You get this person over here. You get this person over here. And let's make a circle. Boom. Circle was made. And I'm like, let's try this circle left. And we would circle and star and promenade. That would probably be all I teach. They had a blast. And here I am. I had been calling for a while at the time, but I'm thinking, how do you take a singing call that I know it's a head square through four, swing through, how do I take that? And then before I knew it, I was calling all night long, maybe using 3 calls, 4, 5 at the most, depending on the level of how these people learn, and having a blast. And I did an article for Square Dance publication years ago, and I said something in that article that I can call full time for a whole year and never call an alum left and still have an absolute blast. And the feedback I got from that was crazy. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? I'm like, hey, there's a Handicapable, it's actually called HandyLab, like CALLERLAB and RoundaLab, and they have a set list of basics to teach. And then if the kids, we still call them kids, even though they're not kids, we call my group's called the Hakuna Matatas, and because we're all kids at heart. There's an advanced group, and it would be maybe the first 20 basic calls would be the basics, and then maybe the rest to the mainstream would do it. But yeah, I mean that's a long answer to a simple question about Handicapable. But we've been my Hakuna Matatas with Tom Miller. We've been this is our 18th year, but it is, let me tell you, the most rewarding thing I've ever done in all of my calling years. And I started calling, I want to say 85 was when I really started calling. It's the most rewarding thing. Never charged a dime for it either. It's all volunteer.
Man. I mean, you've really gotten into something. Like I said, I've never heard of HandyLab or any of that stuff. I've seen the Hakuna Matatas, a couple of things on YouTube. Just watching your stuff before I even thought about doing the podcast with you in the past couple of years. And of course on Facebook, I see the drawings and all that. So, and I can see
that's
what rewarding.
More
that's
people,
fantastic.
More people know who the heck's Corben? What Corben? Who? But they say, oh, that's the guy that draws those crazy cartoons. As a matter of fact, I was sketching something right before I got here. You ever seen this guy?
That is awesome.
Now, I noticed in a couple of your episodes you had like Led Zeppelin and Purple Rain, and I says my man likes the '80s, so I put, I love the '80s, and then you said you called to. Did you say Meatloaf or Kiss?
Kiss.
Kiss, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'll make sure you get this.
That is magnificent.
And I'll put some more stuff on it. I'll put like a, hold on a second. I'll do this live on TV. I will give a little Barney Fife star.
Outstanding.
Or a sheriff's badge. We can add on to it.
Sir, you nailed it with that. That is awesome.
You want to know the funny thing about that? When I would go down to Florida and we're calling, we were talking about this behind the scenes, and I'd go down with the Pirates, Pittsburgh Pirates, not real Pirates, Pittsburgh Pirates, and we'd be calling, and I was calling with a guy named Bob Cadman, and I'm pretty sure he's up in Square Dance Heaven now. He's a great guy. And they go, hey, we got this guy, Corben Geis. Who? He's the guy that draws caricatures for the Square Dance magazine. Oh, my God. So I would go in with the anticipation again. Here's that line dance. I don't want to do the line dance. I want to call Square Dance. Here I am coming down. Was able to get away from the baseball field. I'm running over to call a dance. The next thing you know, I was sitting on my duff all night drawing caricatures of the dancers. And Bob would be like, here, put this tip jar out. And I'd be like, okay, and I'm drawing all night long. And I'd walk out of there with like more money than the caller made that night, sitting on my butt, making people look funny. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, something not right here. And there was a heck of a lot less work for me sitting down. And he does call. When I come up and I'll call a tip and go back down. And I tried doing that with a bunch of dances over the years. And it is so hard to like, they wanted to book me to come in and call, and in between tips, draw caricatures. Well, your basic round dance is only 2.5 minutes. 2 rounds, there's like 5 minutes or so. I'm only going to be able to draw maybe a couple between. So he'll come before the dance. He'll stay after the dance. And it was really hard. But so most of the cartoons that I've drawn of callers like yourself over the years have been people saying, hey, can you draw me something? I want to make a business card. And they send me a picture. I'll draw it, send it to them on the computer, which works the best. But it's been fun.
And that made my night, man. That is great. What I do want to go back before we get into some other Square Dance stuff. What did you do with baseball, with the Pirates? What were you doing?
I'm glad you're sitting down. Well, I like to draw cartoons. I was a walking, well, I can't say talking because I didn't. I was the sports mascot.
No kidding.
I was a full blown out cartoon. Yeah. The Pittsburgh Pirates minor league AA affiliate for the Pirates was the Altoona Curve, which I was at a game last night. And we celebrated our 25th season this year. The first 10 seasons, I was Steamer, the mascot. I can send you a picture of what he looks like. He was the locomotive. Our local history here is the railroad, and he is the front end, the front of a steam engine. Yeah, a K4 steamer, and it was a blast. That a game last night. I actually did that the first 10 seasons. 2008 was my last season because I got married and had children, and I still even last night, someone came up to me and asked me for an autograph because of the mascot. I said, Are you kidding me? You can put any monkey in there to go, yeah, but you were one of the originals. And so here I'm signing, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And it was so much fun. And it was the best weight loss program ever.
Sure. I imagine dressing up in that.
I gained so much weight since I retired. But I'll have people, even at volleyball, I coach volleyball a lot now. I had one of the coaches tell me here at a summer camp we were doing, she said, I don't like you very much. I'm like, I don't even know you. She said, when you were Steamer, that mascot, you came up to me. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. What year was it? She's like, this happened about 2 years ago. Oh, that wasn't me. I retired a long time ago. But like, I still have people. The funny thing with being a sports mascot is when you're in the fur and the fuzz, and you're running up and down the corridors of the baseball field, and you see a kid, you knock off his hat, and they're like, oh! And then the toughest thing was when you get out of this costume and you'd be going to watch a game, and you'd see a kid without the costume on. I said, I still want to knock that kid's hat off. But I know I'd get in a lot of trouble now, because the mascots get away with everything, almost everything. Nowadays, everybody's offended by stuff, but it's 15 years ago that I was doing it, and we were still having a blast. And that's what took me down to Bradenton. The Pirates that was a spring training, and we didn't have to go, but I'm like, I'm going. So we'd go down, and they'd be down there, of course, for a couple months, and I'd go down sometimes just for a couple. Maybe for like a week or so, and it's square dancing and baseball. It's all over Florida, so I was in my glory. I loved it. It was great.
And that's a really good baseball story. I like that. I'm a big fan of baseball. I can't let it go without, because it is a unique story. Tell me about Mr. Rogers. This goes into our age group of dancers and everything.
Oh, wow. How much time we got?
Let it rip.
He's got, if he was still alive, he'd be 100 in a few years. And one of my former art students and he is giving I do kids' books. I have a few kids' books. Here's one I did on baseball. But I have about 10 books that I've done, and I've never done a book for I don't want to say an adult book, because that sounds a bit Pee Wee Herman, but I mean like a book that, and this former student of mine is now a history professor, and he teaches at Penn State, but he went to West Virginia. I got to add that, and he wants to do a book. You need to tell your stories. But the story is, I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. Mr. Rogers was always my hero, even when I was a little kid. It's like, with Mr. Rogers, and being in our age group, growing up with him, you either got it or you didn't get it with him. Sesame Street was a whole different ball of wax, which was great. Sesame Street, we love Sesame Street. But Mr. Rogers, kids either understood his approach or didn't, and I always did. And when I went to art school there, I did my internship at QED Communications. WQED was the PBS station, and dude, it was right there on the campuses of Carnegie Mellon, where like I think Ted Danson learned acting, like Lenny and Squiggy went there, and Pitt. Being a West Virginia fan, I didn't like Pitt either, but and Mr. Rogers' neighborhood was like right in the middle there. And I worked in the design center, and this was early 1993. And it happened to be the 25th anniversary of the Mr. Rogers program. And I said, and he was in and out all the time, because being it was 25 years, he was on the West Coast with like Carson. No, he wouldn't. Carson was done by then, with Leno. And then he'd come back and he'd be on the East Coast doing something with like Letterman or whatever. He was back and forth Today Show. And he was on the Arsenio Hall show.
Wow.
And I'll never forget the episode, because Arsenio had his hat on backwards, and he had this Boys in the Hood type of leather jacket, and it was awesome. And he had one for Fred, and he gave it to Mr. Rogers. And you can YouTube that episode too. And I said, oh, this is my in. I'm going to draw a caricature, just like I did for you. I'm going to draw a picture of Arsenio and Fred and one of the puppets, because Mr. Rogers did about 90% of the puppets in the neighborhood of make-believe. And I drew Fred and Arsenio and Lady Elaine. And my buddy made me make a video of this to tell the whole story, to put it on YouTube, because he says, you're going to forget about it. And I still have COVID brain, so I'm glad I put this down. But basically, I took it, I set it in his office. He tracked me down, and we became instant buddies. And this was no kidding at all. It was a grandfather-grandson type of relationship. My pap had both of my paps had just passed away within the 2 years prior to meeting him. And it was great. And he and I were really good buddies for 10 years. And then he's been gone now for 20 years. It was February of 2003 that he died. But during that time, I got to work in the art department there. They only taped the neighborhood show, I think, twice a year at that time. Michael Keaton had already left. I still haven't met Michael Keaton because he started out there. He operated the trolley, and he also did another thing called Picture Picture. If you're a big Mr. Rogers fan, but never got to meet him. But still to this day, the guy that played Mr. McFeely, who was the letter carrier on the show, he started playing Mr. McFeely in like 1967 or 68 when he was right out of college. He was playing an old man back then. He is now an old man and is still Mr. McFeely. I just went to, about 2 months ago, I went to our state capitol with him, and it was great. He and I were still close. I mean, he Facebooks me and texts me. He's in his 80s, and I'll get calls from him. David Newell is his name, and he just like Fred was a saint. And the funniest thing about all my years with working with the people from the neighborhood, especially the guy who played Mr. McFeely and Fred, was it doesn't matter who you are, Charlie. You could be like the Dalai Lama, or you could be a homeless person on the street. These guys paid attention to you, whoever they were with at that time. They made, and you know, they always said on the show, "You are special." They made you feel 1,000% better. When I just went down to the state capitol, I saw senators and representatives of high intelligence transform into their 5-year-old self in front of Mr. McFeely. And it's hilarious to watch. And the first time I saw that was when I was with Fred, and we would go in, he would ask me to come into the children's hospitals with him. And I'd go in, and, you know, the best way to describe that is, you remember the movie Patch Adams with Robin Williams?
Yes, I do.
When he went into the pediatrics wing and the children were bald because of their chemo treatment, and then Robin Williams went in and put on the fake rubber nose, and the kids all lit up. Fred would go into a room like that, and it just gives me goosebumps to this day thinking about it. And the entire burst of light came into this room of how these little children would just go right up to him, and the nurses and the doctors. Here again, they're like up here. They all transform into their 4-year-old self. And it was so awesome to see. And they touch on that in that Tom Hanks movie. Tom Hanks actually did a really, really good job of portraying Fred. That how and I'm just going off on a whole different thing.
No, that's good, man. Let it go.
He did hear me call square dances too. Fred, he loved it. We did a Mr. Rogers. My buddy did Mr. Rogers music, and I called it to a group of kids in the schools up in Penn State area. I did it for a group of wheelchair dancers, and we videotaped it because this was before the cell phones like we have today. And I sent him the tapes, and he called me back up, and he absolutely loved it. And I actually have 3 Mr. Rogers songs that have been done square dance style. And they're out there somewhere. I can't remember which ones they are. One's called the Mr. Rogers Medley on Silver Sounds, which was a lot of fun to do. That was just, I absolutely loved it. Of course, I put a Follow the Neighbor in there because it's your neighbor. Sure. And there's a Mr. Rogers patter on Omar Records. The music is, you'd like the music. It's very like retro club mix music to a Mr. Rogers song. First time I heard it, I was like, I don't know. But then I started calling it to my Handicapable group of all groups, and they were like, we love this. So I said, okay, we better record
What label is that?
It was on Omar.
Oh,
SquareDanceMusic.com. And on that same one, I know we did it. It's a beautiful day. No, it's such a good feeling. Yeah, that's the one we did on that. And it was BJ Thomas's version, because they did a tribute album to Mr. Rogers a couple years after he died. And this record producer from Nashville, who I'm still in contact with to today, he knows all about square dancing too, because I always drive him crazy with it. He brought in like Crystal Gale, Donna Summer, Mickey Dolenz, all these big names, and they did the salute to Mr. Rogers. BJ Thomas, you know, who did Raindrops Falling on My Head, he did an outstanding version of It's Such a Good Feeling, Mr. Rogers' music. They're all singing Fred's music, because he wrote like 200 songs, which a lot of people don't know. And so I tried my best to do that, and that came out too. And there's another one. Oh, there's 4 of them. The other one I did was on, and I didn't do them for years, because people said, you need to make a Mr. Rogers song. You need to make a Mr. Rogers song. I said, no, I don't want to do a Mr. Rogers song. I said, who in square dancing is going to buy Mr. Rogers? And since that Tom Hanks movie a few years ago, I still have people saying, where can you get it? What was the one? Oh yeah, it's Let's Think of Something to Do While You're Waiting was the name of Fred's song, but it's too long of a title for square dance patter, so I called it Something to Do. Okay. And it's actually Ricky Skaggs' bluegrass version of the song. If you could YouTube the original, it is awesome. And I know a really good picking and grinning kind of a Buck Owens and Roy Clark kind of guy, and he did great music with Jack O'Leary. So yes, yeah, there's 2 patterns, Mr. Rogers' Friendly Neighborhood. I'll try to get the names of them. Isn't that awful? I can't figure out the names of these darn things, and I recorded them.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! I hope you interview a lot more intelligent people than me. I can't speak. I can draw.
No, man, these are the great stories. This I couldn't ask for more. That was part of this.
You want square dance stories, and boy, I got a lot of them.
But you know, like I was telling you right before we started recording, I started this so that a lot of my friends that are square dance callers that don't get to travel yet, whether it be work or whatever, and a lot of dancers that don't, you know, if somebody hires me in Florida, Alabama, right, whatever, to do a dance, and I go over and I spend the weekend and I do one dance, and the people get to know me. Hey, you're a good caller. We like really dancing to you, whatever, but they don't know who I am or anything. So part of the podcast was just that. Yeah, I want to know about your square dancing, but man, your stuff with the Handicapable and baseball and Mr. Rogers, I mean, that's unique, and that's what I want to get out is what all these square dance callers. And I've said before, that couldn't ask for a nicer group of people. And when it comes to helping, hey, I'm a new caller. How should I approach this? How should I do this? You know, and everybody's got their opinion and always looking to help. So, no, man, these stories are great.
You know, with having said what you just said, it's very, very well. During the past few years, and it happened during the COVID, and I keep rolling my eyes because I'm trying to remember. I bet, not just me, I'm not taking, I helped out. There's no way. They try to give me the credit, and it's not, no way. I might have just given you the meat and potatoes. Now you guys go cook the whole entree and the main course and all that. Maybe I helped out, but I think we got about a dozen, maybe a baker's dozen new Handicapable clubs throughout the world, just by doing what you do and putting this out on YouTube and putting stuff out on Facebook. Because the first time I went to our local ARC of Blair County, and the ARC used to be an acronym for America Retardation, but they don't use that word anymore. So it's just basically the ARC. The director there I knew, because a lot of new callers will say, I want to do this. As soon as you see it, and if you see it live, if you have a heart, your heart will just melt when you see them, because they are exactly what we should be as humans. They're the people. I have callers saying, "Why do you want to call for them?" There's no clicks, there's no politics. When they give you a yellow rock, they really give you a yellow rock. And if you think you, Charlie and Corby, like square dancing, these dear folks really, 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 all caps, love square dancing. And so the toughest thing for the newer callers and the calls that I get on the phone is, how do you start this? And they want to know my story. Every single story that I've heard from callers. I mean, I was talking before all this stuff went down in the Ukraine. I was talking with a new caller, a female caller in Russia, who started a group over there, and there was one popping up in Sweden and in Australia, and next thing you know, there's one in the Dakotas back here in the States. My story was, I knew the director. I said, "Hey, there's this thing called Handicapable square dancing," and then the question marks above their heads, and I'm like, "Here, I have it on tape. Look at this." And as soon as they see, and it was at the Louisville, Kentucky convention, and it was 2005 when I first saw the full. I partaken in Tom Miller's Handicapable group before, but theirs was a big presentation at CALLERLAB, and Charlie Wheatley from Louisville, Kentucky did a tremendous performance. And I mean, you're talking standing ovation with this group. And I said, "Here, all you got to do is see it." That's why I have at least 50 or more videos on Facebook, because people say, "I don't even know how to start it." Well, here, look, this is how you start it. I'm learning how to call, and I'm trying to go by what's written on the back of the cue sheet. And I'd be like, "Don't look what's on the cue sheet if you want to call the Handicapable." And the funny thing is, I've done seminars for callers, but being in the activity directing field for as long as I have, they have me come in for Activity Professional of the Week and talk about the benefits of square dancing and handicapable dancing. I mean, because it's a social activity. If you tell an activity director, "I got the best music and dance therapy put that word therapy in there because it is therapeutic," they'll hire you right on the spot. And you just say, you want more benefits? How about it's a sing-along, it's a dance-along. The big thing is it's a reminiscing program. I can't tell you how many, and now I'm bouncing around from going into the nursing centers to the Handicapable Club. For over the years going into the different nursing facilities, I can't tell you, and it doesn't happen much anymore. We're going back to when our World War II folks, the greatest generation, were still in their like 70s and 80s. Now they're in their 90s, and if any of them are still around, they're close to 100. When I would go in to the centers in the retirement homes, Charlie, they'd be like, "I met my husband at a 4-H group. I met my I met my significant other at a Grange Hall. We danced in the barn at my daddy." And they would sit and they would tell me stories like what you like, stories. And 31 years working in the field of with seniors, that's still my favorite thing. They had the best stories in the square. You don't hear it anymore. That I met my wife at a square dance. Now, me, myself, and I actually did meet my wife at a square dance. She came in on had an intro for singles to come to a group, and she came in looking for a guy, and she ended up marrying the caller. But that was another fun story. But the stories are incredible, and I just can't get over how many people who are eager to try this. But there's other callers, because it's always different strokes for different folks, different strokes, that they want to call their spin chain and exchange the gears. They want to call their motivates. They want to call their scoot and plenties and all their. That's awesome. I can't. I mean, I could dance that stuff sometimes, but to me, it is much more rewarding standing up there and watching something that I really like to do and others doing it. Here, Mr. Rogers quote, one of Mr. Rogers' greatest quotes that I think is it's not so much what you have that matters. It's what you do with what you have that matters the most. And that to me has been something I've done way before I even met him. I love this square dancing stuff. These guys are going to have a blast with this stuff. And I have callers who are only been calling for maybe 2 months to 2 years that want to do this. And I say, everything you've learned about square dance calling, don't throw it all away, but it's totally, totally different with wheelchair dancing. And the first thing is why. And I'm like, do-si-do takes what, 8 beats, depending on who you are. Some are faster, some are slower.
Right.
Some automatically want to step into an ocean wave and give it an extra beat or two. But if I'm calling the Handicapable, you're looking at 12 beats or more. If they're in a wheelchair, maybe if they're self-propelling, that's going to take a lot longer to do a do-si-do than somebody who is maneuvering that. And if that person is on an operated scooter, it's going to take longer. And God forbid, and I've seen it over the years, they're called jerry beds. You have these old folks in these beds, and you want to go left, that doggone thing's going to go right. Because everything that you know about music and timing is just totally changed when it comes to singing calls. But you can have the best time of your life with your singing calls going in for Handicapables because they absolutely love karaoke. And you want to do a gang karaoke, you call square dances for these folks. And if you don't know the words to the song, let them do the singing.
Sure.
And it's just amazing. But I'll end with this. I have talked to like C4 callers, and I said, I cannot do what you do. And the C4 caller will say to me, I can't do what you do. And there's tons of guys and ladies in our field that won't go into a nursing home because it's scary. Sure. They won't go into a school to teach because it's scary. So, but that's still, to me, getting the phone calls and getting the texts and the emails of people that are interested in doing specialty squares, I guess you would call it, is still one of my favorite things. Okay, I'll be quiet.
No, that's
while I drink.
What so you've got a lot of these videos on your Facebook and all that. What's your Facebook? Is it Breaking Records or is it under you? Oh man. If you go to anything with me, you need to do 3 shots of NyQuil before you do it. I have my regular. That whole Corben Geis comes from my real name, Corey Benjamin Geishauser. I just took the first syllables to make an email years ago. That was a mistake. Because, you know, when emails first came out, they said you have to come up with a code, like use your birthday numbers with. So I took the first syllable of Corey, Cor, Benjamin, Ben, Geis, Geishauser, Corben Geis. And then I started getting mail for Corben Geis, like real mail, not like snail mail. I'm like, who the heck's it? Oh my God, that's me. But I have a Corey Benjamin Geis out. That's my personal page. Then I have a Corben Geis page. Then I have my columns page, which is my articles that I've written called Breaking Records with Corben Geis. Then there's the SPiN CHAiN SPooFs. That's my cartoons. Then we have a group with the Hakuna Matata's Handicapable Square Dancers. And then I had, during COVID, people were like, hey, what about everybody else out there? I'm like, you're right. So we started another one called All About Handicapable Square Dancing. We're trying to get people from all over the map to add their 2 cents worth. But my YouTube page is just Corey Benjamin Geishauser. Yes. Or just type in Hakuna Matata's, plural, Hakuna Matata's square dancing, and they'll come up. Or type in wheelchair square dancing, and it'll come right up. It's crazy. Wish I got paid for doing some of those things. Oh my goodness. Well, you are a busy guy that we were talking beforehand. You coach volleyball, yes? So you got that. You got school-age kids? 3 teams.
3 teams, yeah.
And when you're not listening. What's that? Go ahead.
I have a 10-year-old who's going into 5th and I have a 7th grader, 12 years old, going into 12th. Or going into 12. She looks like she's going into 12. She's so tall. I'm 6 foot. She's almost as tall as me. And she spiked the heck out of a ball. Holy moly. But yeah, I coach both of their teams, and then they have cousins. So I have a elementary group, I have a middle school team, and I have a junior high team. Oh, somebody help me. Oh my God. Oh. And then people are like, how come you don't call square dances anymore? I'm like, I do. I still have my CALLERLAB, my ASCAP BMI, because you never know.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you going to do with all these kids for a party? Everybody square up. You know, that's another nice thing about having the gift of gab and calling. You know, we just had a family reunion this weekend, and it's so funny because I can't tell you how many one-night beginner parties over the years that I have gone and called square dances for family reunions. We had a blast. Nobody in my family has ever asked me, and I haven't even volunteered to call a square dance at my, because there's not many in my family. Nobody does it anymore in my family, because my grandma and grandpapa are both in heaven, and yeah.
If you're not listening to square dance music, what are you listening to music-wise? What's your choice?
I am pretty much always on Radio Margaritaville with some Jimmy Buffett stuff.
Yep, I saw that.
I play the piano. Well, not as I now it's Tinker Toy, but Billy Joel was always one of my favorites. I think I got most of his singing calls and Jimmy Buffett singing calls. It's funny because I always thought if JB and BJ, Billy and Jimmy, ever knew that there were square dances out there on the thing, what would they do? You know, is it like when the song Imagine came out on Aussie Tempos years ago? Imagine by John Lennon. I'm like, this is so good. You know, Steve Turner did an awesome job with the music. I'm like, John Lennon is probably rolling over in his grave, but this stuff is great. And then Paul Bristow puts out, from the UK, he puts out all this great Beatles music. I'm like, oh, and I got them all. I got all that because I was a Beatles baby, you know. My mom always played Beatles, but I don't know. I have my Sirius XM set on Road Trip right now, which is a great eclectic mix of classic rock, and the next thing you know, you'll have like Clint Black playing, and then it'll go on and do. But I a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll.
Good. That's the best way to be. I find I'm all over the board. And like the drawing, I am a child of the '80s. I was in high school in the '80s, and couldn't have asked for a better time for music and everything else.
Right. And it's on 80s too. I always have my 80s station on. My kids say, Dad, that's so old. And I'm thinking, I remember this was the top 40s. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I do this just to kind of get a feel for everybody that I talk to. So we've got your music genre, Jimmy Buffett, Billy Joel. What are you? Are you a movie guy or a TV guy? What do you consider yourself?
Oh, both.
When you have time.
Both. Right now, I just made the really big mistake of binge watching Stranger Things. And if you are a child of the 80s, you will absolutely love it.
Yes, and really good. Yep.
Last episode tonight. When I'm done with this, I'm going to go and watch the 2-hour grand finale. But I love TV. Mm-hmm. The old stuff, of course, because my grandparents think I would have reincarnated from their time because I like so much. You know, they don't make them like they used to, and that goes with movies and books and stuff like that. But I love movies. I mean, well, as much as I want to go see Indiana Jones with my buddies, since we all went to see the first one when we were like 8. I think the next movie I'm going to see is going to be Barbie with my daughters.
Well, you've got to do it. If you got daughters, you got to do it for sure.
I heard it's hilarious, though. I heard Ryan Gosling is just hilarious in this movie. So I will definitely go. Love the entertainment.
I've got one son, and he is 32, so I don't have to worry about going to see the Barbie movie. My wife wants to see it, but I don't have to worry about that at all. Oh gosh.
Do you like him? Do you like him too? Do you like TV and movie?
Yeah. I'm more of a movie. I mean, I love TV series. I'm in Peaky Blinders right now, which is just really good.
I know. I have it on my to-do list. Peaky Blinders. Okay, good.
It's really good. Of course, I've got the look when I'm right. I've got the Breaking Bad. I didn't realize I had the Breaking Bad until I grew the facial hair, and I had a guy take a picture with me at Willie's place I went tonight about 6 months ago. He's like, "Hey, are you that guy?" And I was like, "What guy?" And he said Heisenberg, and I said, "No, dude, I'm not that guy." And he's like, "Can I please take a picture with you?" I was like, "Sure." So I've had people come up to me at bars and ask me if I was that guy. I'm like, no, I wouldn't be sitting at this little restaurant if I was that guy. So
I will definitely have to send you a video. I'm gonna tell this story real quick as I've ever told.
No, take your time.
No. This could be another series. When my first daughter was born in 2011, I was still working in recreational, therapeutic recreation at a veterans home. Oh, it's the best gig ever. I love those guys and girls. And my wife is a PA still to this day at the VA hospital. So I was able to get the summer off to be with my baby. Jen, my wife, took her time off, and then boom, after that, I had pretty much the summer off. And I had artwork coming out of my ears. I mean, I had a lot of deadlines that I did, and the baby was always right by dad, and I was drawing, and I entered contests. You know, I said, "Oh, you know how it says name the cartoon caption, or do this for the New Yorker magazine, or here's an art contest." Well, just for fun, I saw this thing called the Ultimate Hawaii 5-0 Fan Contest. I think it was, yeah. And that was the first year after. Hold on, the Hawaii 5-0 came out. It was 2010, so that would have been 2000. These guys. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the old Jack Lord. But so I entered this contest, and I'll tell you the full story some other time. Basically, I entered this contest. It was intense. And at trivia, you had to redo in your own way the theme song. And there's all these dares and all these challenges, kind of like the fun badges and fun dangles we have in our activity, like it's in a bathroom. Well, I did this thing where I drew caricatures of the entire cast that I just showed you there. And while I did that, I went, I won.
Wow.
Me and several other people won. We got a whole 4 or 5 days, everything paid for in Hawaii, to hang out with the cast. And I love the old show, so I got to meet some of the guys from the old show. Anyways, that's a story in itself. That same summer, still drawing, there was another contest. I said, "Oh, this looks fun." It says the ultimate, no, this one was Parade Magazine, CBS Uber Fan. And it hit you, Charlie, with all this old CBS trivia. And you had to do a video and get all these people to vote. So I said, my first art job out of Pittsburgh back in Altoona I was a graphic artist at a CBS affiliate. I said, let me try this. I went just for fun, and I entered that, and I won that one. My wife says, no more. I only entered 2 contests, and I won both of them. That took me out. Hold on, I'll be back again. That took me out to Hollywood, and I got to hang out with Mike and Molly from that show.
Yeah.
And Billy Gardell's a Pittsburgher. And I went to see the taping of that show and a bunch of other shows. But I had my Pittsburgh stuff on, and he saw me sitting in the audience, and he goes, "Hey, there's a Steeler and a Bucko fan up there." He invites me to come down and partying with the whole crew after the taping of the show. But so I'm a huge TV, old-time TV nut.
Not not making this up. Last night, my wife and I, about 2 months ago, we go back and since with all the TV apps we have, we'll go back and watch old shows. And back when a season was 24 episodes, we are now in six. I've seen them all, but we're in season 2 of the original Hawaii Five-0 with Jack Lord. And after I watched the first couple episodes, I said, this is just great TV. It's not TV like it is now. We went back and tried to watch all of the Love Boat, but that's 24 episodes and they're an hour. And there's not enough time to go back and watch all of them. So we'll go through and pick out, we'll see who the stars are, and we'll watch that one. So I'm a big old TV guy for sure.
It was so great to see the beginning of that with all these brand new stars back in the early 80s who are big time stars now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's great. Love it.
Well, I ask everybody, let me get them through real quick. Footloose, the original with Kevin Bacon, which is really the only one that I consider, or Dirty Dancing. What is your choice?
Oh, Footloose.
Okay. Very good.
I mean, I like Patrick Swayze, but I like Next of Kin and Roadhouse Patrick Swayze.
Agreed. I appreciate that you brought up Next of Kin.
I love Next of Kin. One of his movies that should have been much, much, much better. Next to Kin than his Ghost and his Dirty Dancing character. I like the tough Swayze.
Oh, no, Ghost is really good.
It is excellent.
But Next to Kin, that I'd completely forgotten about that. It's a really good Patrick Swayze. Of course, Roadhouse is the top of the bunch for all that. So, Braveheart or Gladiator?
How about this? I'm a huge history buff, and I've never seen both of them in their entirety. That is crazy. I would probably have to go with Braviator.
Okay, very good.
Can I mix them together? Because I like Russell Crowe and I like Mel Gibson because they're both nuts.
Yeah,
they're both crazy guys. There's one that just came out with Russell Crowe that I can't. I tried watching. I had a stuff called Unhinged. Did you see that one?
I have not seen it. Unhinged? Okay.
I can't bring myself to watch it. It's about road rage, and I won't tell you anymore. You gotta see it.
Okay.
If you see it, it looks so spooky. My dad used to drive with road rage, so I don't know if I want to watch it. I'd probably watch Braveheart first though, and then Gladiator. Just because I love the history and I love American history and, of course, world history. I'd probably start off with Mel. But, I mean, I saw a Patriot. Love the Patriot.
Sure.
But, yeah, I'd probably start with Mel.
Braveheart is more, to me, Braveheart is more entertaining of a movie because it's more action-packed. Now, Gladiator has the gladiator scenes and all that, but it's more of a storytelling, which is really good. So, both very good. Now, you're in Pennsylvania. Are you born and raised there? Always lived there?
Mom and Dad, we're families from here. Mom and Dad went to WVU, Morgantown, West Virginia. And me and my little brother were both, I have to say this carefully, born and bred. Not born inbred in West Virginia. Born and raised.
Yeah, it's a fine line. It's a fine line right there.
Yeah, so my dad played football for Bobby Bowden way back when Bobby Bowden was still coach in West Virginia. So yeah, we all bleed blue and gold in this Penn State territory.
Nothing wrong with the Mountaineers, sir. I love when College Game Day is in West Virginia. Love it. Just to watch it, and when you see the background and everything, it's a beautiful area.
I was born in that hospital.
What's that?
If you're watching the West Virginia field and they show you the end zone and there's the Ruby Medical Center,
Mm-hmm.
I was born there. So people are like, "Where were you born?" I'm like, in the parking lot. But it wasn't there when I was born. It was downtown. But anyways.
All right. Well, I ask everybody: beach, mountains, desert, or plains? If you could live anywhere.
Beach, mountain, desert, plains. The Jimmy Buffett man in me definitely wants the beach.
There you are, sir. Yep.
But there ain't nothing better like when we go camping in the hills of, West Virginia and stuff. I get go to Oglebay Park down in Wheeling, West Virginia, and get a log cabin, and love them both. But I'd probably beach it.
Okay.
I probably beach it first.
Like we were
Which
talking,
is weird because I'm a fall guy. I'm a fall guy, and that's probably because of the colors and stuff.
Sure.
Pennsylvania, it's just
especially up there in Pennsylvania. Sure.
But I'd be with a margarita on the beach probably. Yeah.
As we said, when I can officially retire from my day job, we'll probably end up on a beach at some point. So
cool.
That is the plan. Also, this is when I started doing this podcast. It's for square dance callers, but I certainly love when dancers come up and say, "Hey, you're that podcast guy." Which, as you were talking about, people coming up to you asking you about the handicapable stuff and all that, or when you were drawing instead of calling, and you're like, "Hey, I want to be up there calling," but they're drawing. When I went to the national convention a few weeks back, and I had more people come up to me and they were like, "Hey, don't you do that podcast?" And I was like, "Yes." So
nice.
I'm known as the podcast guy when I'm walking around conventions now. So
that's cool. And you just recently started this adventure, right?
Sure. Yeah. I think this is it's once a week, and this is number 23. So this is about 5 months, we're going on 6, and just a lot of fun. And and what I tell people too, and I'll bring it together with this. I started this so you could tell your stories and we could hear all about callers and just their lives, like you were saying. But I also did it as a free caller school for me. So do you have any advice for newer callers?
I sure do. Get another hobby. I guess be yourself. Watch Tony, watch Tommy Miller, watch Billy Harrison, watch and listen to the old Flippo stuff. Listen to as much as you can. Take it all in. Try to take a little bit of every one of those guys, maybe, and come up with your own thing. Because it's hard to be original anymore.
Sure.
Especially, and the thing that really bothers me, well, it doesn't really bother me. It's one of the many things in this activity, because this is an activity that you will love some days and you'll absolutely despise other days, is like when you go out and you're just calling a singing call that you like, and you think, "Hey, I'm doing this pretty good," and you're feeling pretty good about yourself, and then somebody at the dance comes up to you and says, "That's not your song, that's this guy. He's the only one out doing this song." And I'm like, actually, he didn't do the song. If you flip the record over, now I'm dating myself. If you flip the record over and see, it doesn't say "So Joe Schmo," it says, Jerry Story. That's actually his. But take a little bit of this guy, that girl, and this that girl. That's another good 60s show.
Sure.
You take a little bit of everything and come up with your own thing. It's kind of like the wheelchair square dancing I was talking about earlier. It had been around for years, but what I did was I put my own personality into it. I put my own touch. When you put more of yourself in, that's what I tell my art students when I'm teaching. I did 2 cartoon camps this summer, and I had the little kids, and I said, the more personality, the more of you put into your work, the better. And you'll be able to draw more. You'll be able to be into more. You'll love it more, and the people will love you back. But the other thing I would tell them is, take your time. Don't rush it. So many people, not everybody, but there's somebody that sees somebody up on stage and they get up the next night or within a week and they think they can do that. These guys who are out there doing their thing, they didn't just do that overnight. That wasn't a correspondence school. And I went to 2 caller schools and 2 conventions. I'm ready to call.
Sure.
I used to draw caricatures all the time. I used to get in trouble at school all the time because the teachers knew I drew them because I put the noses and all that. So by the way, when I drew you, I was the kind caricaturist. I didn't distort too much stuff there. But when I draw Tom Miller, boy, do I have a field day. Boy, do I have a field day with it. But like, it took me years to get the Cahoons to go out and do caricatures at an amusement park. To have people standing over you, and the next thing you know, I'm not just drawing in my little Bob Cratchit desk here in my art studio. I got an audience. And just like square dance calling and a lot of these caricaturists, it's a show. Because I mean, I go out there, and you can do this with square dance callers. You go and watch some guy, and you go, "Oh my God, this guy's so boring." We go to the other guy, man, this guy really knows his stuff. Look at him dancing up there. I used to work with all these caricaturists, and we'd be sitting at the Three Rivers Arts Festival, and these people were already nervous enough to sit down and have their face drawn. And the caricaturists were just, and then here I am, Mr. Diarrhea of the mouth. I can't stop talking. Hey, what's your name? Hey, Charlie, man, it's good to know you, Charlie. Hey, what do you like to do? You're a cop? Oh my gosh, my uncle is a cop. The people calm down. They start talking to you. Okay, yeah, I could draw you in a minute and a half like this guy can. But most of the people stay at my caricature booth for 5 minutes because I'm talking to them. I'm putting my personality in with them, and it's a show. The next thing you know, I got people over top of me watching over my shoulder, me drawing Charlie. And there's folks that are scared to death. Now you got an audience, but I do a lot of joking to try to get it in. There's another thing. When I get up on stage, I do a lot of joking. Not constantly, that would turn everybody off. But some folks get up there and say, "Oh man, I just heard so-and-so call the other night. He called this one joke. I'm going to call the joke. It went over fantastic, man." And then you go and you try to do it, and it goes over like a bag of dead locusts. Sure. You know, different strokes for different folks. You know, you got to take a little bit of this, a little bit. One of the best, and you'll agree with me, and probably every caller you've interviewed out there will agree with me. One of the best was Tim Mariner.
Sure. Yep.
I mean, he was from your neck of the woods too. You know, yep. He was a Georgia boy, Virginia and Georgia, but Tim was the epitome of square dance calling. And he was a showman. He was because you have. I keep saying guys, even though we got lots of females, guys and girls out there, excuse me, that, hey, this guy can sing, this guy can do patter, this guy is really good disciplinarian, this guy is really good at making the best damn pot of coffee I ever had at a square dance. Like, the folks don't realize that these new guys and girls coming into it, we don't just wear one hat. We have so many hats of all shapes and sizes. I mean, it's like one night, I'll never forget, I was just still a kid calling, you know, in my 20s, and somebody said, "Hey, can you do the prayer before we have dinner?" Oh my gosh, I'm a reverend all of a sudden. I'm a Catholic boy. It's going to be in Latin. What do you want? You know? So the other thing is, there's so many different personalities. And you go to caller school, and you'll see all these different personalities. You'll see these guys who have to have everything written down. Excuse me again for saying all guys. You'll have these colors that have it all, has to all be written down. And then you'll see these other guys who don't have it all written down, but they have an outline, kind of basic bullets of what they want to hit throughout the night. And then you have guys who can just wing it. And then you'll see guys, hey, I'm going to try to wing it like him. And then they realize they're not a winger.
Yeah.
Dude, the books that and there is in no way, shape, or form when I write my articles and stuff, I put like a disclaimer out and say, hey, I am not a square dance expert at all. But over the years, I have seen a lot of things, and I should at least be able to give my two cents worth. You know, some of the things what works great for Hunter Keller over there might not work for this person over here. But boy, take a couple of showmanship lessons off of Hunter, and you'll do good. But hey, I really liked how she called that last. I'm gonna put the good caller out there, Charlie, is constantly doing homework.
Gotcha. I agree.
You know, I'm sorry, I just kept going on and on, but when you
No.
talk about something that you like, you can just go on for hours.
Absolutely. Well, Corben, it has been a pleasure. I will wrap it up. Like I said, most people don't want to watch me for more than an hour, and we're sitting around hour 20. So
I'm sorry.
No.
Mea culpa.
No. I told you when I got this started, it's about stories, and man, you've got some great stories. The Mr. Rogers stuff, and just the advice for callers. I couldn't ask for anything more. It's truly a pleasure. Hopefully, I'll run up on you at a CALLERLAB or something when I get up that direction. I just don't get up that far very often. Usually, Tennessee is my cutoff line. I get up to the middle of Tennessee, and that's about as far as I go. But if I get up that way, certainly like to get some time and sit down and talk about it. We've got a lot in common with baseball and everything else. And Mr. Rogers, man, that's a great story. It has been a pleasure. Is there anything else you want to bring out?
Oh my gosh.
Always thought open-ended there at the end there. So.
I have an opportunity for the first time in my calling career to call in Denmark and in Germany next year.
Nice.
I hope it works. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm really excited because my mother's side is from Copenhagen. So we made contact with some of our cousins who never immigrated, who are still over there. And through Facebook, can you believe that? Contact everybody. And my uncles on my dad's side, the German side, have contacts for me in the Munich area where I'm going to be going. But I'm not. It's so funny because when I got the call to come over, I'm like, you and me? Who am I? They want me to call some dances when I'm over there, but they're namely bringing me over to Denmark, Sweden, and Germany to get the word out about handicapable square dancing.
That's great.
And then once again, you go back to this activity. Oh my gosh, we have so many avenues and alleys in this wild and wonderful, not to quote West Virginia there, wild and wonderful activity of ours. I'm like, wow, here I am. That's gonna maybe have the opportunity to get over there to meet up with some cousins I never met, and hopefully drink some good German beer.
Absolutely.
And call a dance while I'm over there. It was a great activity that we're in. People who aren't in it just don't know what they're missing.
Maybe we can turn that around when you going over to Germany and we doing some podcasts, everybody to learn about somebody, and we can get some more dancing done. Corben, it has been a pleasure, brother. Nice to meet you. And
likewise.
We will do this again because you've got a lot more stories to tell.
Oh my gosh, I hardly told any stories.
I know.
Next time we talk, remind me to tell you about the time I called in Red Square in Russia. I'll tell you that one the next time.
Red Square, you got it, brother.
Yeah, that was back when it was still the Soviet Union too.
Okay,
I got a story. There's a teaser since we like movies. There's a teaser.
That's your Red Square. Awesome. All right, brother. Corben, it's great seeing you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Likewise. Hey, see you. Thanks a bunch for having me.
Roger that. See you, buddy.
Happy dancing.